strikes, demonstrations, walkouts across Europe. We have two speakers tonight. The first speaker is, I better take my glasses off, Nikos Loudos, who's an activist from the Socialist Workers Party in Greece and a member of the coalition of the Greek anti-capitalist left, which is called Antarsya. And he's also a journalist with Worker Solidarity in Greece. So we're very happy that he's able to speak to us through Skype tonight. And the second speaker will be Carolyn Egan, who's a very active trade unionist and a member of the Toronto International Socialists. So we're going to get started right away with Nikos, who will speak for 20 or 30 minutes or so, and then he will take questions or comments after he's finished speaking. I think it's about 1 in the morning in Greece. So we're going to let him take questions before we let Carolyn speak. So whenever you're ready, Nikos, go ahead.
Well, thanks, comrades. Yes, it's 10 past 1 a.m. here. I was supposed to be sleeping now, but I'm happy to be with you. And to be honest, I cannot complain, because at this same time, there are people who have bigger problems. I'm following the events in Brussels. The Eurogroup is there. There's a meeting of the Eurogroup at this moment, and the reports are saying that they are expected to discuss until morning, if they will be able to find a solution for what they are discussing there. They are trying to find a solution on how to go on with coping with the crisis in Europe. They have especially the Greek problem today to discuss. Greece was supposed to have received a latest part of the aid. This part of this aid that actually goes to the bankers, but they were supposed to get 30 billions. They haven't got them. They are waiting for them since midsummer, and they are really scared of what if this meeting today in Brussels is not going to work. The latest reports some minutes ago was that the discussion was suspended because there was such a big discrepancy in the views between Germany and the other countries, and also between the Eurogroup and the IMF. So, and I think this situation is what these problems the other side has in order to cope with the crisis is behind the events we have witnessed last week around Europe. And yes, the 14th of November was, I think it was the most important internationalist event in Europe in the latest decades. It was the first time we managed to strike together, at least in 4 countries in the south: Portugal, Spain, Italy, and Greece. I just want to remind you how we managed to go to that common strike. Actually, the European Confederation of the trade unions is a very conservative confederation. Many people don't know that it exists. You don't know if you are a member in this confederation or not. But it was the Portuguese trade unions that decided for a strike on the 14th of November against austerity in their country. And after that, it was the Spanish trade unions that were under pressure from their rank and file to go on strike. And so they decided that it would be better if they would strike at the same day with the Portuguese trade unions. So they decided that they would go on the 14th as well. At that moment, it was important even then, because never before Portugal and Spain, two countries that are so close, had organized a strike together. For decades, there were the trade unions were under different tendencies different political tendencies, and they wouldn't coordinate on anything. And now it was a common general strike, a 24-hour strike. So after that, the Spanish trade unions proposed to the European Confederation to call for a European event, to call for other countries to join 14th of November, and it worked. It worked. I think it was, we have counted more around, I think 23 countries around Europe where we had events. In some of the countries there were strikes, in some others there were partial strikes in sectors, and in some of them there were big demos or other kind of events. Of course, I think that the biggest success was what happened in Spain. Maybe you have seen pictures of what happened there. It was massive. The strike was massive, and the demos were even more impressive. Some people say that maybe when the two marches in Madrid joined together, there were more than 1 million people there. But even if the number is not so high, it was impressive. And you can see how important the event was in Spain, from how the government was scared, the government and the ruling class and the media. Comrades from Spain told me that there were local governments around the country that were keeping the city lights on during the day in order to raise the level of power, so that the next day would say that the strike was not so successful because the consumption of power was high. All the right-wing media the next day had front pages on how much the strike was a disaster, and it didn't, the workers didn't follow that. But it was, when you see the front pages, it's easy to understand that it was a success, because all of them talk about the strike, about what happened the previous day. So it's, another way to see how important it was, it is that there are now sectors like the hospital workers and the hospital doctors that go on striking and occupying hospitals in Spain. I think there is a report from a comrade in the British Socialist Workers printed, going out tomorrow. So it's the events in Italy were also important, where the trade unions were under pressure for months to call for a general strike, and usually they avoided it by saying that they could not coordinate together. The three biggest federations could not coordinate. But under the pressure that this was an European event, and you have to be part of it, CGL, the biggest trade union in Italy, called a 4-hour strike. Actually, the most militant trade unions in Italy called for a 24-hour strike, and the result was really big. There were occupations in railway stations, occupations in tram and metro stations. So actually, in many cases, you can see from the pictures that it's big contingents of students that joined the picket lines of the workers and organized together the blockades, etc. But even in countries where we didn't have a general strike, what happened was quite important. In Belgium, the railway workers organized a strike, despite that the federations, the Confederation didn't call the general strike. And there was a big battle for weeks before 14th of November if they would call a general strike, and the most militant workers joined this European event. The same applies to France. Despite not having organized a strike, 130 demos around the country were organized at the same day. And it's so important because of you know, the government of François Hollande, who recently got the power in France, got there by saying that they wouldn't follow the virus of neoliberalism, let's say. And so there are many people that feel betrayed by what the government is doing, and they were feeling that despair with the trade unions that had believed these lies. And so this European event gave them confidence and gave them the opportunity to get out in the streets and demonstrate against austerity. So in each and every country, what is important is that workers and students didn't join the strike or the demos just because it was a European event. They joined because it mixed with specific fights, specific battles in each and every country. I've learned about events in Turkey where the transport workers organized the strike on 14th of November. And it was an ongoing battle, and the decision of the European unions gave them confidence to go on a 24-hour strike at the day. So I think I'll have to say some more things about Greece, because you know, when 14th of November was called, many people were not expecting to be a success, and not because we have not enough reasons to strike here, but because there was already a strike, a 48-hour strike, 2-day strike, called for a week before. So it was considered difficult to organize a 48-hour strike and then join a 24-hour strike a week later. But actually it didn't work like that. What happened is that the strike, the 48-hour strike before the European event, was such a success and brought the government under siege, and gave so much confidence to sectors of workers that they threw themselves into organizing the strike on the 14th of November, even if the leadership of the unions actually, you know, they said that they would call just a 3-hour strike in the day, just to be part of a European event, but they wouldn't believe that it would actually work. The demo on the 14th of November was really big, and the important thing is that sectors that are specifically under attack, such as the public sector workers, the ministry employees, were there massively, participated massively, and there are specific results coming out of it, and I will tell you later. So I have to say some things about what happened on the 48-hour strike before 14th of November, because it's really important how it has changed the situation here. The government was just passing here the latest package of austerity measures, actually the biggest package of austerity measures until now. And what they were saying was that if this package of measures is not passed through the parliament, Greece would go bankrupt, and the next day people wouldn't have enough money to buy food, because they would lose if the measures were not passed to the parliament, the Troika, that means the IMF, the European Central Bank, and the European Union wouldn't give Greece the necessary aid. The reality is that the measures were passed through the parliament, but Greece still hasn't got this aid, and it's really a disaster for the government. to be in this situation, because they gave to the MPs a text of around 700 pages to vote for. In just it was compiled as one article. You could say yes or no to the whole of it. They had about 2 days to read it and 1 day to discuss it in the parliament. So it was a really undemocratic way to go on. But they were saying that we have to do it this way because we're going to be hungry the next day. That was the argument. And what they managed to do was to get a very limited majority in the parliament. Officially, the government has 179 MPs out of the 300 of the Greek parliament. This time, 153 voted for the measures. That means a majority just of 3 MPs for a government that is supported by three political parties in the parliament. So it was a disgrace. And the people felt it. The people that were surrounding the parliament during the 48-hour strike were able to feel what was happening. Were able to feel that what is the real majority? Okay. What's the real majority? The majority was outside, encircling the parliament, striking and organizing. And inside there were 153 frightened people that were saying that we have to do it because tomorrow we don't have enough money. And because the situation is so hard for them, and the money didn't come, you can understand what is the situation right now. But okay, so I wouldn't say more about their situation. The important is how are things on our side. And just to give you the best news of the day, we have now around 200 town halls and city halls around the country that are occupied by the workers. Since 14th of November was very crucial to do this. Actually, the local government workers that have occupied now 200 town halls around the country didn't join the demonstration on the 14th of November. And some people who didn't know what was happening were saying that, oh, they didn't join, so they must have gone back. The reality was that they were, at the same time, they were organizing mass meetings in the town halls, in the city halls. And the result of the combination of the two, of the confidence coming out of the strike and of the mass meetings, was that they decided to occupy. They decided to occupy town halls. The specific reason for these occupations is that the government is asking from each mayor around the country to provide a list to the government of which will be the workers that should be laid off immediately in the next days. And from the hundreds of local governments around the country, only 30 mayors have provided this list to the government, and from these, out of these 30 lists, the majority says that we don't want to lay off any of our workers. But because the workers don't trust the mayors that they will be on their side forever, they decided to occupy the town halls and city halls and occupy the specific offices that would be responsible for providing these lists of people to be laid off, and say that we will not get out of these rooms if the government doesn't take back this measure. So it's really a very important big thing happening, and since yesterday, this way of thinking started to go into ministries as well, because the government is doing the same with employees of ministries, and there have been blockades of. For example, there's a specific ministry that there was a small list of people to be laid off, 17 people out of a big ministry, but the employees decided to blockade the ministry until this list was taken back. So, despite how the government is trying to promote itself, that it gives a battle for Greece in Brussels, etc., etc. The reality is that they're really weak after the last 2 weeks. They are very weak in parliamentary terms, but the most important is that very weak in terms of what's happening in the street and in the workplaces. I just want to focus on some things. The importance of rank and file organizing was very important at this time again. I want to bring you some examples of what's happening. I didn't mention the what's the English word? The administrative employees of the universities that also have occupied universities in the last week for the same reasons, against layoffs, and they have also occupied a very central building in the center of Athens, owned by the university, that has become a symbol for many sectors of workers because it's in the center of the city. And this decision was not taken by the trade union leadership. Actually, the trade union leadership was saying that we cannot do anything. We just want to talk with the government to find a better solution, etc. But they organized a mass meeting for the employees of Athens University, organized a mass meeting, and they decided that no, we have to occupy. We have to occupy anything we can, any building that we can owned by the university in the city. And so they provided an example to other universities, and their employees did the same. I have to share a peculiar experience. I think it was Monday. Yeah, it was Monday. I was just walking from the office, going to take a coffee, and there was a lady talking on the mobile, and she said, she was talking to someone and said, "Yes, we just occupied. You should do the same." I don't know which workplace was where she was talking, but it was you understand the climate. What was happening in the center of the city in the last days. So that the same applies for the local government unions. Actually, when the leadership called for occupation for the local governments, it's quite a left-wing leadership. But when they called for occupations, it was not from their side. It was not a proposal to escalate. Actually, it was more a proposal to let the steam off, because the majority of workers were calling for an indefinite strike. And in order to avoid an indefinite strike, they said, no, we have to try to occupy. And they thought that it wouldn't be easy, so the thing would end. But the rank and file took it seriously, that when they said that we can occupy and stop the layoffs. And so when the government announced the way they would ask from the mayors the lists, they turned the symbolic occupations into real occupations. And today their demonstration in the center of Athens, I think it was the biggest one I've ever seen from local government. Maybe everyone was there. I think maybe everyone was there. It was. In previous years, this kind of demos would be demos of a general strike, but it was just one sector today. It was just the local government workers with the philharmonic in front of the demo playing music, and refuse workers behind the musicians. It was really big. So it's. I think you have to tell me how much time I have.
Do you want another 10 minutes, Nikos? Is that okay?
No, not so much.
Okay, 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
All right. So Okay. Just to give you some more pictures of how things are going, it's after 14th of November. Actually, every year, the days from 15 to 17 of November, there are special days for Greece because it's the anniversary of the uprising that brought the dictatorship down in 1973. So it's always days of demonstrations and full of politics. So it was really helpful for us to have an European event on the 14th, and then 15, 16, and 17. Have I lost connection?
No.
Okay.
No.
We had these 3 days of demos and protest, and you know, some years ago, I remember people were saying that we should stop this anniversary. We're now, you know, almost 40 years after that uprising. So who would remember? Why would we remember an uprising that brought down the dictatorship? But the reality is that every year, more and more young people take part in the demo to remember that. And there are many people who make connections with the fight against the dictatorship and the fight today against austerity, against governments that are trying to push forward their measures in such an undemocratic way. The big demo on the 17th of November traditionally goes to the American embassy because of the role the U.S. embassy played in supporting the dictatorship here. But we didn't stop there. We marched around 2 kilometers more, going to the Israeli embassy because of the massacre that's going on in Gaza now. So I think we are proud to say that it was the biggest demo around Europe in support of Palestinians, because a march of tens of thousands of people went up to the Israeli embassy. The government had sent thousands of policemen to stop us at the American embassy in order not to go forward to the Israeli embassy. But Antarsya, the anti-capitalist left, decided that we should go on. We stayed in front of the police cordon, and staying there pushed even the Communist Party to join us. And they as well came in front of the police cordon, and after around an hour in front of the police cordon, they let us go, and we managed to go to the Israeli embassy. I think it's a sign of a more general political radicalization coming through the struggles against austerity. Let me bring you an example. The union of a local government. But it's not a particularly left-wing union. From a municipality in southern Athens, the banner at the latest demonstration last week was, "We don't want our life to be lives to be in the emergency anymore. Let's go on for workers' power." So it's these kind of slogans that connect the specific struggles with general politics are more and more around. They are becoming actually slogans for the majority. On the 14th of November, I didn't mention that, there were many people, especially from an older generation, let's say, that were making the connection, that they were saying, we're proud to strike together with Portuguese and Spanish workers, because 40 years ago, we brought down the 3 dictatorships together. In 74 in Greece and Portugal, in 76 in Spain. So these connections come again to the foreground. And actually, the last thing I want to mention is that the way the other side, the government and the ruling class, is trying to cope with the situation actually leads to more and more political radicalization. The way they have been trying to use the fascists is a clear example. They have been pushing the fascists. They have been using the fascists as a scarecrow against the movement for in the last years. They have been using racism as a card. And it's not just ideology. They have been killing migrants. They have been killing officially. They have been killing in the borders. They have police that when migrants try to come from Turkey through the river, there's a river in the border between Greece and Turkey. What the police is doing is destroying their boats and trying to drown them in the sea. Lots of migrants have been drowned by this kind of official racism of the police. And next to that, there's this unofficial crimes organized by Nazi gangs that have tried to control neighborhoods around the country. But the real picture is not like that. You may have seen reports of how the Golden Dawn, the Nazi party, is rising in the polls in the last months. But I have to give you a real picture coming from the streets. They haven't been able to go publicly in the last months wherever they tried. They haven't organized anything. They didn't manage to organize a public presence even in the neighborhoods they say they control. Many trade unions have now decided that they wouldn't let any fascists in the workplace. They would kick them out, and they have started kicking them out. There are examples of factories where the fascists tried to go there and say to the workers that the migrants should be laid off in order for Greeks to have the jobs. And the result is that I won't give details, but I assure you that they will not try to do that again in this factory. So it's the reality is that the movement is becoming more politicized and understands how the battle to fight against austerity cannot be separated with the fight against racism and against the fascists, because this is the only way the other side is trying to put us down. You know, there's a slogan in the latest demos that says that fascists, bankers, and the Troika, the IMF, all you scum, work together. And it's actually, I think it's a very clear slogan that comes from more and more contingents of workers, because this is where the stakes are now. That more and more people understand that we have to fight together in order to get rid of all this scum altogether. So, thank you.
Thank you, Nikos. So I guess maybe now we'll take, if people have questions or comments, or is that okay? Is that okay? Okay. So I don't know if Nikos will be able to hear or not, I hope, anyways. Yeah. Okay, so if you have a question or a comment, just put your hand up and I'll just take people in turn. Yeah?
From here, or should I come closer to the mic?
Whatever you like, Barry, if you want to come closer.
Project. I'll try to project. Hi, Nikos. My name's Barry. I'm with Socialist Action, and our sister organization, Opta, is part of Antarsya with you and the other comrades in Greece. Thanks for your report. It was very encouraging on some levels, but you didn't mention Syriza. So I'm wondering what role it is playing in not just in the parliamentary debate about the Troika package, but particularly with respect to what it proposes be done, apart from defeat of the package, which narrowly passed Parliament, what it proposes, because it seems to be still committed to maintaining Greece in the Eurozone, which implies the austerity program. And I'm wondering also, what is the relationship between Antarsya and Syriza in the streets, insofar as Syriza's agenda becomes more evident to more people?
Okay. Did you get that, Nikos? More or less?
Yes. Should I answer now? Or wait for more questions? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I'll take a few questions, more questions or comments, if there are any, and then before you come back. Yep.
Maybe just more of a comment, but people in Canada have been quite frightened by the rise of Golden Dawn, and Golden Dawn is even opening up its own offices in Montreal, and there's also been talks of it opening up offices in Toronto. So it's really great to hear all the work that comrades in the broader movement are doing in Greece to directly challenge the fascist threat and to make that link that you can't fight austerity without fighting racism and the other way around. So it's just really heartening to hear that, because just seeing the growing threat of fascism is pretty scary.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Well, Nikos, maybe do you want to come back on that, on those couple of questions, the one about Syriza?
Okay. I think we have to be clear about let's say the two souls of Syriza. It's the polls are now showing that if we had elections tomorrow, Syriza would be the first party. And I think it's a reason to celebrate, because people who say that they would vote for Syriza are the same people who say are the people who haven't been brought down by all this blackmail coming from the other side. The ruling class, the government, the IMF. These guys have been saying to us that there is no other solution other than austerity. There's going to be disaster if you vote for the left, and there's a constant campaign against the left and against Syriza, who happens to be the first party of the left in the polls. So it's when you see polls showing Syriza being the first party. Actually, there's no poll now. There's no opinion poll saying that Syriza will not be the first party to have elections. So that means an ideological victory for our side, and an ideological defeat for the other side. They have lost it. They have lost the way politics used to be in Greece. You know, we used to have two big parties that would change from one election to the other, and the left would be 5% and just be in the opposition. So it's a victory for our side to be like that. That, of course, doesn't mean that. So you have to see it as a reflection of the struggle. Syriza's rise is a reflection of how the struggle is going on. It's we have victories, and it's reflected on the rise of the left. Of course, that doesn't. Syriza's politics are really relevant to what the movement is doing. Let me bring you two examples. I mentioned the march to the Israeli embassy. We had this fight with the police, and we marched to the Israeli embassy. Antarsya and the Communist Party marched to the Israeli embassy. Syriza chose not to march in order to, to stay with what the government was saying, that we shouldn't march more than the American embassy. Last week, the local government workers in Salonika, a city in northern Greece, organized a blockade outside the German consulate, and they fought with the German consul. They were so close that they threw a cup of coffee on him, and there was a big pressure from the government that it's a disgrace for the country to have a German consul and be like that. And Syriza said that it condemns workers that behave like that. So it's Syriza on the same on the level of the streets is not as big as it is in the level of the opinion polls. It's there's a big difference between the two, and actually they are now in the process of conference. They were supposed to have the conference just after the elections, but it has been postponed now. We don't know when it will happen because there's an ongoing struggle inside Syriza on how they can compromise what they have been saying before the last elections, who were saying quite radical things, with the prospect that they could be a government now. So I'll just stay on this. There are two souls on the question of Syriza, but the important thing is that it's a reflection, its rise is a reflection of the struggle. So our duty is not to focus on what Syriza says or says not, but to focus on organizing more the struggle that has produced all these political results. On the question of Golden Dawn, I think it's I won't say more. I already said. I just want to stress a connection that usually in international reports is being lost. The political collapse, the collapse of the political parties, of the big political parties in Greece, is very much connected with what's happening with the Golden Dawn. We don't have Golden Dawn may take 10% in the elections, but they don't have organized Nazi gangs in the streets that reflect this kind of an electoral success. You have to take into account that PASOK, that used to be the biggest party in this country, used to take more than 40%. Now the opinion polls say that we'll take 5% in the election. The same applies to New Democracy, the Greek right wing. They have taken the smallest percentage in their history, and they are expected to take even less. So that means that we're talking about hundreds of thousands or maybe millions of people who have been used to vote for these kind of parties, and now they collapse. And of course, it's an official racism that feeds Golden Dawn. It's a ruling ideology now in Greece that migrants are to blame, and so we shouldn't be afraid. We should continue organizing. We have already seen the results of organizing against the Nazis. I told you that they don't dare to get in the streets now. On Saturday, there are two big demonstrations again in two different parts of Athens against them. And okay, I expect from you to give me more news about how you're gonna stop them if you're trying to open up offices there.
Okay. Okay, Nikos. So it's about 2 o'clock in the morning there. Thank you very much, Nikos, for joining us. We're just going to let Carolyn speak now, so you're welcome to stay if you'd like, or...
I'd like to stay.
Okay, great. All right. So our next speaker is Carolyn Egan, who's a member of the International Socialists, a trade unionist here in Toronto.
Okay, thank you very much, and Nikos, thank you so much for that, because there was not enough news coverage, frankly, of what was going on in Europe and the magnificent strikes that took place in Portugal, Greece, and the countries that you were saying, and others. And I think that has unfortunately been what has been happening. We're not getting the reportage of what is going on in other areas of the world in the fight back against the austerity agenda, particularly in Europe. And I think what I'd like to speak about today is what the situation is here in North America a little bit, because possibly because the interaction between the two, the news isn't there on the streets in the newspapers as much as it should be. There's a pessimism, I think, in a lot of the trade unionists here in Ontario and Canada about the possibility of a similar fight back. The situation is not the same, yet the austerity agenda is being inflicted on people here in very, very troubling ways. And I certainly have seen at our Labor Council in different unions, there's almost a North American exceptionalism that somehow this is happening around the world, but it's not happening here. And I think it's very important to understand the method that you were essentially outlining. that there was no big night of the barricades, as I think you or some other comrades has said in Greece, that it's been a process, not an event. And the importance of the rank and file organizing that has been going on in different workplaces where 1, 2, and 3, either comrades or other militants, have been working with their fellow workers to build a rank and file consciousness. And in sometimes not the most large or influential unions, there have been actions, smaller actions, whether it's been teachers' unions and others, as you have mentioned, that have made strides forward, and that has pushed the leadership that has been unwilling in many instances to move forward. And I think, as you mentioned, a lot of the leadership in Greece had been with PASOK. They were social democrats. They weren't necessarily militants. The trade union movement in Greece was not necessarily a movement that was, 1,000 years ahead of trade unions in other countries, in Canada and the United States. But because of the actions of people on the local level, working together with others in their own workplaces, making steps forward, whether it be a short strike of 4 hours or whatever it may have been, bringing other fellow workers out to actions that were being called, there was tremendous pressure that was placed on the leadership. And as time went on, that pressure, of course, pushed the leadership to run to the front of struggles and to call actions that made a huge difference, and the confidence of workers grew and grew. And I think that when we look here, and we have had the Occupy movement, obviously, in North America. We've had the magnificent student strike in Quebec. We had the Wisconsin uprising that took place a while ago in the United States. And what I was doing when I was thinking about this talk was looking at some of the concerns that fellow workers that I have been talking to have, and others, because we've had a series of setbacks, and there's been setbacks all over the world within the organized working class. But we've had a series of setbacks in Ontario, particularly. There was a strike in strike at Valley Inco up in Sudbury, and they fought very hard against concessions, and they lost in the end. There was a closure of a Caterpillar plant in London, Ontario, and there had been real hope of an occupation, but the Canadian Auto Workers settled in the end, and the energy just flagged. There were potential strikes in the city of Toronto around cuts to the budget, the municipal budgets, and concessions being demanded of workers, and both of the two major unions in QP 416 and 79 in the city of Toronto settled. And this has been demoralizing to working class people, because they felt, well, what is going to happen if the unions are not going to fight? How are we going to make this fight broader and build more confidence? But what I was doing when I was looking at this was to look at some of the areas where we have had movements forward, and there have been a number of very, very important ones. And I think there is a commonality that goes through those struggles that leads right back to what you were talking about in Greece and other areas of Europe. And I just wanted to look at 4 of those and look at the commonality, look at what had happened there and what allowed for the success and the confidence that developed in some of those. And the first one I wanted to look at was the question of the library workers here in Toronto. And you may not be familiar, but people here, there was a huge fight, and we knew that there were lots of services being cut. There was a lot of tax on workers, layoffs of workers, and 2 of the larger QP locals, as I said, that was the municipal workers, settled. The library workers did not settle. They did not settle. They went on a 2.5-week strike, and they did not win everything, but they were able to fight back and push back on the concessions that were being demanded on them, and the workers themselves felt that they had gained a victory. And when you look at what the difference between the large municipal unions and the library worker union, which was smaller, is that union had been doing for quite a while exactly what some of our comrades and other workers were doing in Greece. They were working together with their fellow workers. They were going from library to library for quite a while prior to the actual onset of the strike, and they were building, and they were building. And not only were they building within the workplace, what they were doing was building with the communities that they served, the users who came in and used the books, used the facilities. And Toronto is the most widely used library in all of North America, the most widely used system. And when they came to the point where concessions were being pushed upon them, they were in a situation where their union, their membership, had a certain confidence that they could fight back and win. And I see a library worker nodding here, though in another city. And that was tremendously important. And they had major figures like Margaret Atwood, a Canadian writer, come out on side. They had read-ins of people. They had all kinds of activity that linked the community with the workplace. And when they struck, they had very broad popular support. And it was because, I think, of the work that had been done by library workers through the whole period leading up to it, which gave them a certain strength. Now, another example of this, and again, this is a strike that took place in Quebec. It was my own union, the United Steelworkers. You had a situation where almost 800 French-speaking steelworkers were locked out on December 31st. They were locked out from their workplaces because they wouldn't accept horrific concessions, concessions that were more than most workers could handle, very similar to the ones that were put on the Caterpillar plant in London. All new hires were to be hired at half the rate of pay. They were to be contract workers with no pensions, no benefits, nothing beyond the ability to go into day-to-day work and with no job security at all. They were locked out, and they felt that their union was not providing the support that they needed. And they demanded of the union that the union had to give resources, it had to put energy, it had to fight along with them. And because they lived in a small town in northern Quebec, fairly isolated from the rest of the province in many ways, they organized amongst themselves. They had a tremendous amount of rank and file solidarity within the community. The whole community was organized. The hockey rink had their signs hanging from the rafters. Every restaurant you went in had the strike signs in it. And there was a whole range of things. They joined, and with the Quebec students when they were in their major demonstrations. And there was a lot of basic working class solidarity that developed. Our steelworkers here went their 13-hour trip, 13 hours on the bus back and forth to show solidarity, and it brought confidence that they were not alone. And so if you look into what allowed them in the end actually to win that strike, against, in many senses, all odds. No one honestly thought they were going to win, except perhaps for themselves and those providing solidarity. They were able to win, again, not absolutely everything, but that whole attempt by Rio Tinto, the third largest multinational in the world, to crush those workers failed because of the rank and file activity, the membership essentially running its own strike. There was international solidarity that was built. There were a lot of things, but if it wasn't for the membership essentially taking over and running their own strike, I don't think we would have seen that victory. And when they won, they had fellow workers in Kitimat, BC, in a Rio Tinto facility organized by the CAW. Those workers, whose contract was also coming up, gave $60,000 of their own wages to that strike monthly through the lockout. And that was an extraordinary piece of solidarity. And when the Kitimat workers then came up for their contract, they were able to win and beat back concessions. And then after that, another Rio Tinto workplace up on the St. Lawrence, a mine, 300 steelworkers, they were able to get an extraordinary deal with 4.5% wage increase over the period of the contract, $6,000 signing bonus, and an increase to the defined benefit pension plan, which is just unheard of in this country. But it shows the confidence that was built from one workplace to the other workplace because of the solidarity and because the members took control in Rio Tinto and essentially pushed it to the limit and won as a battle that we had not seen in a while. Now, I want to look also at the United States, and I can't go into any depth here because we've had a great talk, but when I was reading and looking at the whole question of what went on in Wisconsin, we have a general view of it. I can't go into detail, but there's a great book, Wisconsin Uprising, which talks to you about it. You can see that what happened, why did that happen in that city at that time? Wisconsin had been battered. They had really tough concessions that had been wrought out of steelworker workplaces, Teamster workplaces. There was a big strike at a food processing plant, and they had been battered. But when this came about, what you saw happening, that in Madison, there was a new leadership that had been coming up from the rank and file in the Madison workforce, both in the private sector, the building trades, and in the public sector. And you had people who had been questioning the concessions, questioning the way that the leadership of the unions had been functioning. And when Scott Walker and tremendously anti-union bills were being put forward, there was discussion at every level. And I think, as people know, that the teaching assistants at the University of Wisconsin were the first to march into that state legislature building to begin the occupation. But there was also the 4-day teacher walkout, wildcat, whatever you want to call it, organized by rank and file teachers against the leadership who did not want that to happen. And there were a whole range. If you look into what was going on there, you had a head of the firefighters, for example, who's, interestingly, his father had been the head of the union way back in the 60s, which was the only union that went with the anti-war movement and the student strikes that took place in Wisconsin at that time. This younger guy came up from the ranks, and it's normally a job that when you become the president, you step out of the workplace, you lay down your tools or your fire hose at this particular situation, and you go into the union office. He refused to do it. He wanted to stay with the rank and file because it was the rank and file that brought him. He was on a progressive slate that won, and that kind of perspective maintained. There was the leadership of the building trades, and the building trades in the United States have not always been the most progressive of unions. The building trades developed they were some of the first people out. They developed a sense, and they were calling for a revolution, whatever that may have meant. And they were saying the AFL-CIO is not going to lead. The key, he argued, this was the leader, the new leader of the building trades, was organizing the rank and file. He had won again on a progressive slate, and he criticized the union leaders for trying to trade workers' income in exchange for maintaining collective bargaining. Essentially, they were caving. In my opinion, that's a horrible mistake. I want to see this power pushed down to the membership, and I want the membership to step it up. It's the rank and file who will win these struggles. And it was very interesting that you saw this coming in a fairly progressive town in the middle of a somewhat conservative state, depending on where you are. But there were pockets of resistance that developed, and when things were coming to come to shove, in Wisconsin, it was these groups of militant workers, some who had taken over their executives, some who had not, who pushed it. It was the teachers. They walked out and they pushed it, and they got support across the state. And I think you see this method where we have been able to win battles, win struggles, win strikes, win lockouts, is when the rank and file has organized and given confidence to their fellow workers and pushed against the leadership. I mean, there are a lot of examples there. And I just want to end really by talking about one of the most interesting ones that I have found in recent times, and I'm sure people are pretty familiar with it. And that's what happened with the Chicago teachers. People are pretty familiar that during the election in the United States, the teachers chose to strike in Chicago against all the Democratic bosses, against their upper level leadership. Don't strike in the middle of you'll hurt the Democrats. Mitt Romney's going to win. Don't dare do it. But what had been going on in that union, and it was been going on since 2008, was there was a caucus of rank and file educators who had organized themselves, and they had organized because they were fighting against the closure of community schools or the changing of schools into charter schools. And what they had done is they had built strong links with the communities that they served, many racialized communities, the black communities, South Chicago, and others. And this was tremendously important. They made these links, and this caucus grew. Caucus of rank and file educators. That's what they were. They were older teachers. They were younger teachers. And it was incredibly important that the message they were putting forward of linking with those they taught, linking with the parents of those they taught, and fighting back against what they call the education reforms, the austerity measures, which were essentially going to make the classrooms larger and the teaching shorter, many, many less teachers, and the time the kids were in the classroom shorter. Now, when it came time for them to be in negotiations, what was going on was they were trying to turn merit pay, not pay people based on seniority, not have any standardized tests for teacher evaluation, and they fought very hard to preserve seniority, but the struggle was not viewed as one simply the teachers trying to take care of themselves. The struggle was viewed by the community as the teachers fighting for decent education for the children, and it brought tremendous support from the community. And what this grouping had done is they, in the lead up to the bargaining, they had set up contract action committees, as they called them, in every school. And what this contract action committee was essentially a rank and file formation in every school. And prior to the strike, prior to getting into the bargaining for this strike, they had never intended to run for the leadership. That had never been the intent. They just wanted to build a strong and engaged and a confident working class in the teachers' union. But they were pushed by their fellow workers. They ran and they swept. They took it over because they were able to get the support by far and by large of the majority of the teachers, and they won. And then they brought this same rank and file militancy into the bargaining and into the strike. And the result, when they took their strike vote, they had a 90% turnout, meaning 90% of the actual teachers came out, and that's extraordinary. I mean, you don't see that. And it was a 98% mandate for strike, 98%. It was huge. And this was an extraordinary, again, the leadership of the leadership that was defeated had an absolutely contrary position, obviously. But because of the rank and file organizing on the ground, they were able to make huge gains, and when they did hit the picket lines in September, it was clear that they had the support of the vast majority of their own members, and the large sections of the public, both students and parents, were joining these lines. So, you know, daily strike bulletins were produced. It was a incredibly informed workforce that was involved in this strike. And when they came finally to after being out for a number of weeks, they came to a deal, a tentative deal. They refused to end the strike until, firstly, there was a House of Representatives of rank-and-file delegates from all the schools who had a chance to review it, look at it, give a thumbs up, thumbs down. Then they brought it to the membership after that. If it had been done, then they would have gone back and they would have continued the strike. So it had a huge, huge impact. So what I want to end there, because I don't want to go on for too long, but I think if you listen to what Nikos was saying about what has been going on in Europe, in countries like Greece, about the role of rank-and-file militants has been incredibly important, building the confidence of their fellow workers, going into workplace actions, going into the streets in small actions first, which led to large, which created more and more and more pressure on the trade union leadership because of the effects of the economic crisis that we're all seeing. This is incredibly important. Trade union leadership, whether it be in Greece, be it in Canada, the United States, or anywhere, by the nature of it, it tries to mute the struggle, keep the struggle down. That's what its job is. It's the structural, systemic nature of the union bureaucracy. And if the pressure is there, if the pressure is hard, and if they see the membership moving, then they have to run. Most of them will run to the front and try and get ahead of the steam that's gathering. Because as Nikos was saying, they want the stage army to come out, and then they pull it back. They want the stage army to go home. They don't want workers to have the control of their own workplaces, their own communities, and frankly, their own lives. And I think if we look at the working class around the world, we're seeing the slow coming back of the rank-and-file militancy that has made such a difference. And I think, you know, if you go back even to a question like Wisconsin was one of the first places where the public sector in the United States was organized, you know, a number 40 years or more ago. And the memory is real, because, you know, 40 years may seem like a lot to some. It's not so long to others of us. But there is a history of working class militancy in Canada and in the United States. I think, as I said before, if you see the energy of the Occupy movement, you see the energy of the Quebec student strike, and you see where we have had victories, where the working class has fought back and won, it shows that is there. The consciousness is there. People want to do it. It's a question of how you mobilize to make that happen. And I think there's a method, and as socialists, we understand that method. It's the power of the organized rank and file. And if we can do whatever we can in our own workplaces, etc., to help that move forward, give confidence to our fellow workers, then we will begin to move toward, you know, larger and larger fight backs. And I think we have coming up on in the end of January at the Liberal Party convention here in Toronto. The Ontario Federation of Labour has called for a mass demonstration rally. It's not a general strike. We've had those back in the 90s. It's not that, but it's a start. And I think all of us who are in our workplaces, it's incredibly important that we rally and organize and talk to our fellow workers to get a huge presence on the streets on that particular day, and that's our part of the fight against the austerity agenda. So there are tremendous lessons to learn from what Nikos has said and what we're seeing happening in Europe, but we can bring those same lessons here. We may not be at the same stage of the struggle, but you never know. At the flash of a finger, things can change, and we can see that level of struggle here too. So I'll end it at that. Thank you.
Okay, so we have time for a few questions, comments. So I'll take a list. Yeah, go ahead.
This is just more of a comment. Thank you both so very, very much. This is so inspiring and so enlightening. I had listened on Democracy Now! To talk about the Chicago students' strike, or the teacher strike, and what they said was that they were fighting for things they weren't allowed, as my understanding was, they weren't actually allowed to fight for anything except for more money. But part of what was on the bargaining table was to have windows that closed, to have, I think, more than $200 for supplies. They wanted a medicine cabinet for their drugs, for the nurses and stuff like that, and they wanted more of those sorts of staff. So it was just the thought that they would demand that for the community very much. It was for the schools and the communities.
Yeah, one thing that, just to tip people off in case you hadn't already noticed it coming, later this week, Friday, which is the day after American Thanksgiving, Black Friday, the biggest retail shopping day of the year, it's also a day where people are really seriously mobilizing around justice and dignity for Walmart workers. I mean, people who are really some of the most done down workers in the United States. The idea, and there have been already sit-ins, occupations, strikes throughout the Walmart empire, one of the biggest retail empires in the world. This is a very, very significant, I think, movement where we need to be tuned into our media, our alternative media, because what we're going to see is that the mainstream media is not going to tell us what's really happening on this Friday any more than they're really telling us what's really happening in Greece or in Spain or in Italy, or what's really happening in Gaza. We know that they lie, they distort. More and more, we're able to expose those lies and distortions thanks to wonderful technology like that brings us face to face with Nikos today. So, but we need to be aware of that and spread the news when it comes, because I think it's going to be significant.
Yeah, at the back, Judy.
Toronto Socialist Action is having a forum, Stop the Drug War, an eyewitness report by UNET leader Joe Lombardo on the recent American anti-drug delegation to Pakistan. That's 2 places in Toronto on November 30th. At 1 p.m. it's at Ryerson Open House, 2nd floor, 60 Depot Street, at Church Street.
forrespect.org. That's how you can follow actions, and you can sponsor a striker, and you can leaflet on that day. You can join pickets, and there's also going to be actions within stores, like workers are going to do actions within Walmart stores, and it's something like 23 states right now, so it's really been, it was 23 states last time I looked, it could be even bigger now. So it's going to be really big, and you know, it's something that's really exciting to me, so it's something we should keep tabs on, sure.
It's forrespect.org?
Forrespect.org, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think most of the people in this province are very much concerned about all the cuts going on in our healthcare system. And they're probably not aware of the policy changes that our unstable government has put in. There's massive cutbacks in our hospitals, long-term care centers, and our home care. The Harris government closed hundreds of hospitals and put in the home care, but now the home care is being decimated as well. I think around the province, there are people that are really, really up in arms about this. And hundreds of people are dying. I mean, this is life and death.
Okay, thanks. Alan?
With the remarkable example that you gave, Carolyn, I see the in each particular case, it was the rank and file, the workers themselves, that had actually accomplished the end. Now, one might perceive, correctly or incorrectly, let's say currently with those 4 examples, one might consider or one might conclude that the union administration may be rendered, for lack of a better expression, may be rendered a lame duck. Now, if it's going to take the if it's going to take the rank and file of the membership to accomplish those ends, what confidence or what position do the members feel in any union, in any organized workplace? How are they going to feel? Or what kind of confidence or credibility, if any, are they going to have in the administration? And taking that one step further, I'm sure Sid Ryan has got to be worried about these things. Could you have your feedback, Carolyn, please?
Okay, so I'm going to take a few more questions, and then give Carolyn and Nikos, if he wants to, a chance to come back. And Nikos, I don't know if you can hear me, but apparently we're broadcasting this, and there's someone who has a question for you online, and Kevin's just going to let us know what that is.
How did Greek workers connect the fight against austerity to the Palestine solidarity movement?
Did you get that, Nico? Okay. All right. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I think Alan raised something significant to think about in relation to what we saw in Chicago, what we're seeing in Greece, and I think for us, in a really exciting way, and that is what does it take to actually build confidence in your workplace, in your school, and beyond. And it really points to the role of self-activity, connecting up with people in your workplace, people in your classroom, and beyond, and being a kind of radicalizer in that role. So that doesn't mean you're shouting and denouncing leadership just for the sake of it, or calling on them to act, or even expecting them to, but organizing those around you to be able to push those people to act, but also creating the networks that are able to act when they don't. And Quebec is a really good example of what can be accomplished with a small group of activists who have a project and can see how to unite forces beyond them, but also be able to take the politics and raise that to a higher level too. And I think that's why we're organized as socialists, and it's something we have to be raising wherever we are.
Okay, I have one person left on the list who's already spoken. I'm just going to take a last call if there's anyone else who wants to say anything. If not, then I'm going to give Nikos and Carolyn a chance to just come back on some of that.
One more from online.
All right, one online. Go ahead.
Could Nikos talk about what happened on the recent anti-austerity demo that ended at the Israeli embassy?
Okay, so one last speaker, and then I'll give it back to, go ahead.
with your emphasis that the key is rank and file self-organization, particularly to make our unions more effective, and to be more effective they have to be more democratic. I'm a substitute teacher, member of OSSTF, and we've seen our work slashed by up to 80%, partly due to the loss of sick leave. The teachers suffered with the passage of Law 115 in Ontario, and partly due to local union collaboration with management and how the work is distributed. And as a result, well, not as a result beforehand, but more so now, we have an action caucus in the union to struggle for a new leadership and a new way of doing things to meet the needs of the membership. And we see the need, we in Socialist Action see the need to build such class struggle caucuses in the unions, in OPSU and CAW and all of the other unions that are not facing up to the austerity drive. But I want to come back to Greece in just the few seconds I have now. Greece is on the leading edge of the resistance to the austerity drive, to the boss's austerity drive. And in our view, Greece is the future of Europe. The fact that the Golden Dawn Nazis are trying to extend their movement, even though they may be in retreat in the streets of Athens, the fact that they're attempting to extend their movement internationally and to establish offices in Montreal and even Toronto is troublesome. I come here also to make a concrete proposal. I know this isn't a meeting to vote on proposals, but I ask you to think about this. I think we need to seriously consider the launch of an anti-fascist common front in the city. You know, from a little acorn, a mighty oak tree can grow. We need to confront the likelihood that if Golden Dawn seeks to establish a base of operation, it will be in Toronto Danforth. Both our organizations have members in that area, and I think we need to seriously look at being prepared to confront the appearance of the Nazis in that part of the city or elsewhere when that is posed. In Montreal, I think we need to pursue it as well. We need to approach unions in both nations. Quebec Solidaire, which took a very good position around the assault on Gaza just these past few days, and to step up the fight to try to unite in the struggle against not only austerity, but also the leading edge of austerity, these Nazis and anti-immigrant and racist forces which try to divide the working class. So that's an appeal. I ask you to seriously think about that. We're prepared to discuss it in the days ahead.
Okay, thank you. Okay, before I give the floor back to Nikos and Carolyn, just a couple of quick announcements. Speaking of solidarity with workers, right now the contract teaching staff at St. Mike's and University of Toronto are on strike. They've been in negotiations for over a year and they haven't been able to secure a fair contract. So there is picketing that's happening every Monday through Friday from 9:30 to 3, and there's going to be a solidarity rally. Is that tomorrow? Sorry, it's tomorrow, Wednesday, November 21st at noon. So all the activities are happening at the Kelly Library, and I think everyone probably got one of these. So if you can come out to the picket line or help out in any way, that would be great. Nikos talked about the march that went from the American embassy to the Israeli embassy, and there's a very important demonstration in Toronto this Saturday at 2 p.m. against the assault on Gaza, which is being organized by the Coalition Against Israeli Apartheid, Toronto Coalition to Stop the War, and other organizations. So that's 2 p.m. this Saturday. And where are they meeting? Could someone tell me? At the Israeli consulate, which is just at 180 Bloor West. Thank you. Lastly, I just wanted to mention our book table. Carolyn was talking about the role of the trade union bureaucracy and the importance of rank and file. If you want to take a look at our book table back there, this is a very good book called Marxism and Trade Union Struggle, which is about the importance of the rank and file, and also the new issue of our paper, Socialist Worker. So now I'm going to turn things back to Nikos, and I just wanted to take this opportunity, Nikos, to say how much we appreciate the fact that you were here and how important it is to hear from you from a place where, as Carolyn said, the struggle is sort of at a higher level than it is right now maybe in North America, and it's been really great that you've been willing to share your experiences with us, so thanks very much.
I'd just like to try to point to concerning the questions. First of all, on the connection between solidarity to Palestine and the fight against austerity, let me tell you this, that on the last 48-hour strike I mentioned on the 8th and 9th of November, the police used for the first time a water cannon against the demo. We didn't used to have water cannons, they usually used tear gas. And it was just imported from Israel. As all the tear gas they have been using against us in the last years, two workers have died in the last years in demos because of the use of tear gas in Greece. And it's all imported from Israel. So the connections are easy it's not only that. Actually, in one of the local government occupations I mentioned before, today, the workers outside the town hall didn't put a banner against austerity. They put a banner, freedom to Palestine. It's this same government that has been trying to impose all these austerity measures has made a record number of mutual visits to Israel. On, I think it was mid-August, when there were common drills by the Greek and Israeli air forces in the airspace of Greece. And anyone can understand now that it was a rehearsal for what's happening in Gaza. Israeli warships, warplanes are using Greek airspace in order to exercise for the massacres. So the connections are easy, and it takes for the left to propose that these connections are being transformed into action, and that's what happened in the last demo I mentioned on the 17th of November. It was the anti-capitalist left and the Communist Party from one point after that said that we should turn this demonstration into a demo in solidarity with Gaza, and so we demand from the police to open up the street and let us go to the Israeli embassy. A second thing, I would just like to add one thing to stress how important is the logic presented by Carolyn in her speech. I always try to stress that Greece may seem like an exception now, but it's not in the DNA of Greek workers to do that. Okay, it's I mentioned the ministry employees who are now in the forefront of the struggle. Some years ago, not many years, maybe 5 years ago, ministry employees didn't even strike when the public sector federation called the strike. They didn't. We didn't see their unions. They were very conservative as unions, and even as workers in several cases. And now they're in the front. What changed? What changed? Experience. It was experience. It came through experience. In October 2011, last year, because of an attempt to lay off, there were meetings of inside ministries, and we had that first wave of blockades. Actually, these blockades were not organized by the unions. It was the workers, the employees that were trying to discuss what could we do with these layoffs, and they would just walk down in the street in front of the ministry, sometimes after work, and this was transformed into an action. And what happens? Those actions last year brought down the previous government. And it was a very big experience for the people themselves to understand that our action brought down a government. And what's the result? That now the movement that comes again out starts from that point, because the experience is in the mind of the people. But now the government said we were going to lay off, and the next day there were occupations, because there were groups of people in each ministry that had the experience that it works, it can work. So we can start from that point and and go on. And I think it's the same experience in several workplaces. It's not some kind of a tradition. It's not some kind of a different trade union leadership. Let me just point that we may have had the biggest number of general strikes as a country in Europe, but in the last general strikes, the trade union leadership doesn't even come to the point, to the place of the demo. They don't even come. They're afraid of the people. So it's not some kind of a militant trade union leadership that calls for a strike because it has the support of its members. They are really pushed from below and from rank and file. And I think it's a way to follow and go on.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just pick up on a few of the questions and what Nadine was saying around the Chicago strike. Absolutely, windows in classrooms that actually closed. I mean, basic things. So kids in Chicago is a cold city, the windy city, right? It's not in the South. So those basic needs that the teachers were looking at and being able to respond to the needs of the kids they taught and the community that they serve, absolutely critical. And that coming together is the same, and I think it's very much the same model that we saw with the library workers here, that sense that it is for us. Cuts to jobs means cuts to services, and that's what it's all about. And I think, you know, people talking about the Walmart workers, you know, very, very difficult circumstance, a totally anti-union company that has smashed unions, and when unions have been organized, they've shut down the stores. So the fact that workers are showing themselves to be militants in a Walmart environment, in many instances without a union, it's a very, very, very important step, and anything anyone can do to support that is absolutely critical. And when people, you were talking about the cuts to the healthcare system, you know, there was an assembly that took place on the weekend of the Ontario Health Coalition with people from all over the province, and the cuts to home care, to hospitals, to long-term care, it's extraordinary, absolutely. You know, I was there as well, and I think there's no doubt about it, and there's going to be a common front meeting on December 8th of all the different community organizations and labor to come together and really build that community labor solidarity that hopefully we will then see on the streets January 26th, which is absolutely critical. And in terms of the leadership, you know, obviously, you know, what Nikos was saying about the leadership in Greece, we've seen the same thing here. Now, in terms of Sid Ryan, who's the president of the Ontario Federation of Labor, there was a clear distinction in the last election, and we should make that clear, between what I would have said was a right-wing leadership that did not want to do anything, and Sid Ryan, who came from a more militant tradition and you know, had fought against the Ray government in ways other unions chose not to, and all of that. So the distinction, I think, was fairly clear at that point. When you're asked to vote, if you choose to vote, then you vote for what you see to be the left wing. But nonetheless, I think the very nature of the trade union bureaucracy places people above and out of the workplace, and in a situation where they being long from the tools, they do sometimes and oftentimes feel that it's their decision and not the role of the workers. And our role as socialists is to build at the base, always build at the base, and wherever the successes are going to be coming from, it's going to be when workers gain confidence in their own ability to change the world. I mean, we know that's the case. We've, you know, going back to the Paris Commune, the Bolshevik Revolution, whatever you want to look at, we know the potential is there for the working class to use the might that it's there, and very often the role of the trade union leadership is to push that back. But what we're seeing in Greece and other places is that workers organized in their own workplaces gain confidence from their actions that grow and grow, and the more they do that and feel that sense of their own, then the possibilities of a different world become very real. And for we who are socialists, organized socialists, that is a very encouraging moment, obviously, because socialist organization does not make revolution. It's the working class, they make the revolution, and the more that working class sees the potential for change, that there is an alternative to the system, the better off we all are. And you know, and we're just hoping that as time goes on, more and more people will come to those conclusions, and why anyone who's not a member of the International Socialists should see a reason to join us today and be part of those struggles. But I think that, again, I'll just close by saying even though, and Nikos is also right, there's nothing in the DNA of Greek workers that make them any different than any other worker around the world. But at this moment, they have a particular place in history, right? At this moment, they are inspiring. What the Greek working class is doing is inspiring to all of us, and that's very important. But what we have to understand is we can all be in that same place. We can all be in that same place, and it's up to us to, the more that people have an experience, whether it's fighting against fascists or fighting against racists or going on strike or fighting a lockout or doing whatever it is, fighting concessions, workers gain the experience, and when you are in struggle, your ideas change, the experience comes to you, and you can feel the power that's yours. And that's the circumstance we're in right now, and so the more that we can do to help that struggle move forward, the better off we'll all be. So thank you very much.
So thank you to Nikos and Carolyn. Thank you for coming out. I just want to let people know you're more than welcome to come back next week, same time. We'll be having a discussion of the situation in Gaza and the role of the Harper government, which is pretty shameful. Also, for people who are interested in finding out more about Greece, one of our branches, the Toronto West branch, this Saturday is showing a documentary about the workers' struggles in Greece, and the information about where it is and when it is right here on the board. So thanks for coming out.
Thank you. Thank you, Nikos, so much.
Thanks, Nikos. It was excellent. It was a really good discussion, and it worked well with this setup. If we had this every time, we'd be better off. I think it would just be a lot easier. There was no feedback, or sometimes there's feedback.
Yeah, that was great.
It worked really well.
Yeah, and that was great.
Great.